What up, y'all? This is Tracy from Nerd Squish, and today we're going to talk about one of my favorite Halloween movies to watch every October, Under Wraps. It's officially October, spooky season, if you will, and the most magical night of the year approaches. And as a result, everyone's feeling a little nostalgic, and we're all rewatching our favorite Halloween movies from childhood. For us 90s kids, that means movies like Casper, Ernest Scared Stupid, and the Disney heavy hitters like Hocus Pocus and Halloween Town. But there's always one movie that gets left behind. The very first Disney Channel original movie and severely underrated film, Under Wraps. Oh god, not that terrible monstrosity. We're talking about the 1997 DCOM that follows the story of Marshall, who is a monster movie obsessed kid, and his two friends Amy and Gilbert that become friends with a mummy. So today I want to dive into the details and nerd out about one of my favorite Halloween movies from childhood. Now, before we get into the details, if you're new here, this is Nerd Squish, where we take everything spooky and we take everything nerdy and we squish it all together. So if you like Halloween, horror movies, and pop culture, definitely hit that subscribe button so you can see more videos from us in the future. And if you do subscribe, that means you will see more of these finger guns. This movie starts off with a truly horrifying scene. Like, seriously. Modern Disney could never get away with this. We have this family sitting around the table eating dinner. The son is rambling on about monsters, and the family's trying to put him at ease and tell him that monsters aren't real. So the dad gets up, walks to the kitchen to go wash dishes, and the knife falls down into the garbage disposal. Okay, so then it starts spinning, and you get a feeling with where this is going, or at least you think you do, because then all of a sudden this monster crashes through the window, grabs his head, and pushes it down towards the revolving knife. This scene single-handedly gave every 90s kid a fear of garbage disposals. Seriously, I can't turn on the disposal without thinking about this scene. Also, is it just me? Or does Warthead here kind of look like Victor Crowley? We think this is the start of our movie, but it's actually the main characters of our movie watching this movie. So we got a little movieception. So our main characters consist of course, Marshall, who I mentioned before. He's this horror movie, monster movie obsessed kid. He's honestly cool, and I would hang out with him. Then we have his best friend Gilbert, who was seen watching the movie, but he's very much a scaredy cat, not into the horror movies, but kind of goes along with it because he's friends with Marshall, which I have a lot of friends like that I torture with horror movies. So again, this is all very relatable. Then the third friend rounding out our trio is Amy, and she's just this very snarky, realistic friend, and I love her. I feel like I wanted to be her when I was a kid and I watched this movie. Now, just like every kid's story, we have to have a creepy guy that lives in a creepy house in the neighborhood. So with that, we have Mr. Kubat, who suddenly dies, and there's rumors going around that he has a coffin in his basement. So naturally, Marshall, Amy, and Gilbert decide to break into the basement to see this coffin. However, they find a little bit more than they bargained for when they find a mummy that has been raised from the dead. At first, they're terrified, literally screaming and running, and just hysterics ensue, but then after the world's longest pee, they realize he's not such a bad guy. I absolutely love this scene. Anytime I have to pee really bad and it seems like the stream is just not ending, I always refer to it as a mummy pee. So the kids leave the mummy at Kubat's empty house, and they head to the local bookstore that also sells spooky and creepy memorabilia owned by Bruce. So he searches in his ancient tomes, and he gives the kids the information that they're looking for on mummies, including the fact that if a mummy is not returned to a sarcophagus before midnight on Halloween, he dies. Well, I guess in this case he wouldn't really die, he's already dead, so let's just say he ceases to exist. Meanwhile, our mummy is wandering around the modern world learning about things like drive-thrus and hospitals. This is both hilarious and actually very, very sweet. This poor thing wanders into the hospital and the staff there thinks that he's a burn victim. It's easily one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It's brilliant and super fun to watch. Our mummy, who the kids name Harold, is brilliantly played by Bill Figurbacchi. I really hope I said that name right, but you may know him as Patrick Star. As a character who can't talk, only communicating in grunts and groans, his physical comedy is top-notch and never fails to make me giggle. Specifically, there's a whole scene after the hospital fiasco where the kids find him and he's trying to tell them what he's seen, what he's been through, and he does this all with like physical comedy, and it's amazing and I love it. He also has this affection for the song All By Myself, and something about it just makes me want to give him a hug. We must protect Harold at all costs. Now, the problem with getting Harold back into the sarcophagus before midnight on Halloween is that the creepy dead guy, no, not Harold, Kubat, is actually still alive. The dude faked his death and he's in some illegal scheme to sell the ancient Egyptian artifacts, including, you guessed it, Harold's sarcophagus. So Kubat finds out that the mummy has somehow come back to life and these kids have him. So not only does our trio have to try to figure out how to get Harold back into the sarcophagus before midnight, but they have to do all of this while Kubat's goons are chasing after them. So how does a group of kids steal a sarcophagus? Well, it just so happens that they know somebody that has a hearse, none other than our friend Bruce. The ancient books on the macabre, the hearse? Bruce is the Merton Dingle of this story. Or maybe it's more like Merton is the Bruce of Big Wolf, because technically Under Wraps came out in 1997, so he came first because Big Wolf didn't come out until 1999. Anyway, that's not why we're here. So the kids hit up the local Halloween party because Bruce has a haunted house set up there. And the vibes of this party are primo. Y'all know, I don't know what it is about these Halloween movies, but they always have the most epic Halloween parties in them, and you watch them and you're like, how come all the Halloween parties I go to don't look like that? You know, you got maybe like two people in a costume and you got the one guy in the lazy t-shirt. Like, where do we find these parties in real life? And this is just a fun scene because who doesn't, again, love a Halloween party? But you get this really, really great interaction where you have these two women fighting over Harold because they don't realize that he's a real mummy. And in the attempt to find out who he actually is, they unwrap him and you just see his like unwrapped face and he's like, hi, and then the entire party just screams and freaks out. Now, during all this craziness, Harold ends up getting captured by the henchmen and brought back to the warehouse where Kubat and the sarcophagus is. The kids go over there, manage to fight the bad guys, bring the sarcophagus and Harold back to the museum, reuniting him with his lover. This scene is really amazing. It's super beautiful. I get choked up every single time I watch it. As a kid, and even now. I honestly feel like this movie was the therapy that a lot of 90s kids needed. In the midst of spooky characters and comedy, you watch the main character come to terms with his parents' divorce and all the changes happening in his life through his speechless mummy friend. Fun fact, Bill Figurbacchi actually plays not only Harold the Mummy, but the boyfriend of the mom that Marshall doesn't like in the beginning of the film. Okay, so we've talked about the movie, okay? It's got everything that you could possibly want in a family-friendly Halloween movie, okay? We've got an epic Halloween party. We have a trio of friends, a cool monster that we've also befriended. We've got comedy, we've got scares, we've got fun costumes. So why is it that this movie gets so overlooked every year? I really don't understand why this movie isn't as popular as its fellow DCOM Halloween Town. It's funny, heartwarming, and has some pretty good scares for a kids movie. Which sometimes I kind of wonder if that's why it isn't as popular, because maybe it was just a bit too scary for kids at the time. The sets, costumes, and monster makeup is absolutely fantastic. When this movie came out, I was 8 years old, and I wanted nothing more than a mummy best friend. And now, as a horror and monster-obsessed adult, I am so envious of this kid's room. I mean, look at this. It's filled with movie posters, mask replicas, and props. And maybe this is, in an attempt to kind of appease her child, like, hey, me and your dad got divorced, I got this boyfriend you don't like. Put a bunch of monsters in your room, I don't really care. Even if that is the case, still very, very cool that this mom let this happen. And it absolutely blows my mind that more people don't talk about this film, considering how back in the day I felt like every kid was obsessed with Egyptian history. The great thing about this movie is it's just as fun to watch now as an adult as it was to watch as a kid. It holds up really well. The real crime is that this movie is not available on Disney+. They have a lot, and with all the movies that are on their streaming service, this really doesn't make sense. On top of all the recent trash that Disney makes, you have movies like The Cat from Outer Space, available to stream on Disney+, but not Under Wraps. You're telling me that this movie right here has a bigger fan base than Under Wraps. And then they have the audacity to make the absolute trash that is the 2021 remake of this movie. They basically took the concept of the original film, took all the heart and the horror, and made it politically correct. Which, let's face it, it was so bad, that is the horror. The horror is that this movie is that bad. And they were like, yeah, let's release it. That's good. And apparently it must have done well because they made a sequel. How? Who is the audience for this? If this is what the kids are into now, there really is no hope for the future. I feel like the 1997 Under Wraps has a lot more comedy than maybe some of the other Disney Channel original movies or Disney Halloween movies. While the others have comedy, some can have very questionable acting, okay? It's very much made for TV acting. But I really feel like our main trio, they work, right? Maybe some of the background characters, the supporting characters aren't the best, but our main group, it's believable. I buy it, and the comedy is brilliant. I laugh my entire way through this movie, even now as an adult. I feel like the movie has a very familiar formula. If you're a fan of The Goonies, Monster Squad, Big Wolf on Campus, anything of that nature, you're going to love this film. So if you're looking for a fun Halloween movie to watch this October, look no further than Under Wraps. The entire movie is on YouTube, and unlike a lot of other rips, it's actually pretty good quality. It's a great movie about friends, family, and making friends with monsters. Are you a fan of Under Wraps? Let me know in the comments. Please, let me know that I am not the only fan of this film. It's criminally underrated, and it makes me so mad that you have these movies like Halloween Town and Hocus Pocus that are equally just as good as Under Wraps, and they get all the hype. And then you talk about Under Wraps and people are like, what? What movie are you talking about? And that's not me poo-pooing on those two other films. I love those movies. I wish Under Wraps got the same respect. It's definitely a comfort movie for me, and it's an instant mood boost. I could be in the worst mood in the world. I put this on, and life is good. I hope you enjoyed this video. I've been wanting to do a video on Under Wraps for a while because, like I said, I just feel like it's underrated. People don't talk about it. You got Hocus Pocus, literally everything. And yet Under Wraps goes unnoticed. So I needed to put the word out there and nerd out with any fans that we have of this 1997 DCOM. I hope you enjoyed this video and nerding out about Under Wraps with me. If you did, give this video a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so when new videos hit the channel, you'll be notified. I told you, finger guns, we're gonna go strong in this one. And as always, thank y'all for watching, and I'll catch you nerds later.